Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello again and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Ralph Brogdon, and I am excited today to be speaking with Toni Reilly. Toni is the founder and pioneer of SoulLife Psychology, offering visionary intuitive techniques and philosophies for conscious practitioners. She joins me by Skype all the way from Australia. So good day to you and good day to all of our listeners. It says here you are the founder of SoulLife Psychology. Tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
I developed this modality, which I called SoulLife Psychology, which is I'm taking it as unique as it is, but a lovely way for people to, I guess, manage their areas in their life that they might see as issues. So overcoming grief or, getting through the disruption of a relationship breakdown, or actually even things like self-confidence. So basically what this arena does is address anything that's bothering us personally to just make us feel better about ourselves. And that's the basis of it.
Now you do some things called Soul Life Magic seminars. Now that really sounds interesting. What is that all about?
So at a Soul Life Magic seminar, what would happen is there would be a group of people who I would explain about exploring the soul realm of ourselves. So with meditation, we can actually, all of us, everyone is capable of doing it. We can go and visit, the other than life realm, which I'm calling soul life. So basically we go into meditation and we can get answers for ourselves to our questions, or maybe just even get rid of a fear of death. So it's the most beautiful space that you can go to within your meditation. And also, of course, part of that seminar has to be practical as well, where we're going to address something that the individual would like to. So any questions that they have about their life or, anything to do with their career or themselves personally, or anything that's bothering them, they can come along with that in mind to this seminar or workshop and work on it, get an answer for it, and have like a breakthrough in inverted commas.
So that sounds really interesting, and I think that's really applicable to a lot of people in a lot of different areas, especially in their relationships and in their personal life as well as in their business. I'm curious, Toni, how did you get started doing this? How did you come up with the idea, and what got you interested in this field?
Well, Ralph, I led what I deem a really mainstream life. So I was, married young, 3 little kids, and working in a sort of a standard job. And I guess I was always pretty intuitive, though I realized what that was, though at a time in my life, which was in my mid-30s, and that relationship ended, or that marriage, after 16 years, it was as though it was the catalyst for me to really start looking at myself. Before that, in my everyday life, which was extremely busy, I thought that I didn't have any issues, and I was just running along, pretty happy, and that marriage broke down, and I started soul searching, I guess, and part of that meant that I was looking at who I was, and to be honest, I was really shocked, and I thought, because part of when you start to look at yourself, of course, you see that there are lots of issues, and it's not really good initially. So when I say issues, I mean things like I always thought I was extremely easygoing, but once I start to look at myself, I'm pretty controlling, actually. And the things like that is what I mean by issues. So no one needs to be afraid of how big these issues necessarily are. But certainly insecurity played a role in the way that I behaved, and it was kind of a shock because I certainly would have appeared to everyone as extremely confident, and even I thought I was myself.
So it sounds like it started out as a journey of self-discovery that led to a purpose where you wanted to be able to help other people with the wisdom that you had gained. I think this really has a lot of relevance to business owners, business leaders, in particular, people in leadership, places of authority, where if they don't get their personal issues, their insecurity and their fear and their low self-esteem, if they don't get those fixed, it creates a toxic work environment or a toxic business environment. I think the old saying is true that people who feel good do good. People who feel good do better work, and so I can imagine some business person thinking this is really good for personal stuff, but what's the relevance to business? And it's incredibly relevant to business and to the success of your organization. And even if you're a self-employed person, to be able, because you project your insecurities and your negativity and the things that, the sort of things that you help them work through, they project that into their business, into their customers and their clients. And so I could see where not dealing with those issues can really be very costly in actual financial terms, in terms of business.
The big thing that I discovered that almost everything in our lives that comes back to is self-esteem or self-worth. So although on the surface we don't realize that that's what drives our actions and our thoughts even about ourselves and others, it is the culprit mostly, but it's not as though people come along seeking help for their self-esteem. We have to work on what they have come for, and that's what it ends up coming back to. And basically when people are seeking help, they'll come along and they'll tell you a story, and it might be that they've had an argument with their partner, or they're having a struggle with this, their son or their daughter, whatever the case may be, even their physical health. And once you work through the actual story that they're telling you, then it ends up not being about the other person. It ends up always being about them, and you can get to the underlying issue, which will come back to self-esteem. And a lot of people right down deep don't feel good enough, and they cover it up in all sorts of ways. It can reveal itself as, I guess it can come across as arrogant, which can put people offside, or it can come across as not confident. So it's not even the same. The way that people project out to others is not the same for everyone. So it's a really interesting thing to start looking at yourself and seeing how we behave and what we can do about changing it.
Now, speaking of change, I always like to ask, what is something that someone could do right now? It's fine to talk about theory, but what is something somebody could do right now from a practical standpoint that they would immediately begin to see some improvement and give them a little encouragement in this area?
If I could recommend for people to do any one thing, it would be that they research themselves. Now, you could do this in so many simple ways. You could jump on the internet and do a personality test. If you don't believe in numerology or astrology, do a personality test, do a free one online. And if you're into numerology or astrology, then that's amazing too, because all of these things will come back and give the same result, which will essentially be some insight into your psyche, your personality. And those are parts of ourselves that we actually can't change. So whether we like these parts of ourselves or not, we can't really change them. So we can be aware of them. So one of the best things that comes from this is that we make friends with ourselves, and we're like, well, I've got my personality, and you can use it to your advantage instead of forcing yourself to behave differently, maybe because someone else expects that of you. And it's the greatest, I believe that is the biggest thing we can start to do for ourselves, get to know our personality and then start working with ourselves instead of against.
I really like that because it really, it's especially in the personal development space. And the idea seems to be a lot of times if you find something that you don't like, then you can change it. You can, and what you're saying is there's some elements of your personality that you not only can you not change, but that you shouldn't change, that's part of who you are. And so it's really setting us up to fail if we are trying to change something that's a part of who we are. But being aware of those possible weaknesses, we can work to improve our skills in certain areas without necessarily trying to change something that's not changeable. I think that's a really big idea that I get from what you're saying.
That it's what you just summed it up with is so true. And maybe if I could give a little example for how,
Sure.
if we're living against our innate traits or personality, let me think of an example. Let's say that I am introverted. I'm not introverted, but let's say I'm quite an introverted person and my partner is extroverted. And because I feel like I need to go along with him and, do whatever he's doing. So you run with this person rather than sitting back and taking time to yourself. Something so simple as that can, when you're trying to live as something that you're not, it actually can make someone extremely anxious, or it can surface as what we might call depression, or one way or another, our own self will react because we're not necessarily being true to our personality type. And a lot of people don't realize that that's what they're doing. And for them to change it, so we end up having to change some boundaries around the way that we've been behaving within our family or with our partner or kids, and the relief is immense. But it's not until they realise that they're going against who they are every day that is actually causing issues for them.
Yeah, I could see where that would be very, very draining in the first place, because I've done it. I think a lot of people have done it. You've tried to be something you're not in order to live up to someone else's expectations, and that drains your energy. And not only does it make you angry, I think it would make you resentful and very negative. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does. Yeah. That's exactly what happens, because I guess the reality is we can only uphold this farce for so long, so not being our true self, and then it does build up as bitterness, and it can take a long time, but there'll come a point where we get taken down with ill health, or we just explode in and maybe just leave a relationship because we've reached our limit, rather than we could have made some changes by just living more to who we really are, to our personality type.
I love that. I think that's very liberating to think about. I want to shift gears now, and I always put people on the hot seat. So especially people who are considered experts in the space of giving advice and help with other people. I always like to ask, what is the biggest challenge that you're facing right now, and what are you doing to overcome that?
Okay. One of my key points when I train people is that we are all messy. Sometimes I swear, actually, but for the sake of radio, not to offend anyone, I'll say that we're all messy in one way or another. So there's no therapist or professional who is free of issues. So we all have them. And I guess if I were to look at myself right now and tell you what's going on, I'm launching this SoulLife Psychology around the world, and there'll be times where I might get worried, we'll call it, worried that, how's it going to work? What if this happens? What if that happens? So I suppose it raises a little anxiety here and there. That's a little bit with the work, but personally, my 3 kids are all young adults now, and they are living home, and everything's changed in their reliance on me. And I didn't think, I raised these kids pretty independent, and I thought I'm pretty tough as a mum, as in, not a real, I guess I didn't go over the top with controlling them, but when it comes to the reality that these kids are all going and I will be an empty nester, it's actually, it makes me cry sometimes, the change. I didn't think that would happen to me, but it did. And of course, I suppose it's only going to be a momentary thing that will pass as I adapt to the change. But that was one thing. And another thing, you did ask me one, but one thing I have to admit to is I can sometimes get in victim mode, feeling sorry for myself when I feel like on this path of creating this modality, and I write and do all sorts of things, it feels sometimes like nobody understands what you're doing, or I guess how much effort you put in, this kind of thing. So, yeah, sometimes I can get on a bit of I feel a bit sorry for myself.
I think all of us probably can really relate to that quite a bit. So tell our listeners a little bit about what you do to stay motivated and to get through these issues that we all have and these feelings that we all have. I mean, how do you stay up? Is there a daily thing that you go through, or are you more of a kind of a take it as it comes person?
I'm very much a take it as it comes person. I would love to be probably a little more routine than I am. But this is one thing about my own personality that I had to accept, is that instead of thinking, oh my goodness, I only follow that routine for a couple of days, I had to accept that I'm not a routine person. So to stay motivated every day, look, the truth is some days I'm not motivated. Mostly naturally, I'm pretty motivated and driven. But if I'm not, I just sit with it. And, in the last couple of years, I have had some really sad times where I was heartbroken. And there are days when I probably cried most of the day. And I just let myself. I couldn't force myself to write or to be up or to put on a brave face, and so I didn't bother. So if I feel down or sad, I allow it to be that way. And I guess when you do allow those down times, then it allows then for the big times, or the up times, the motivated days. And I guess accepting that life is a bit of an ebb and flow.
Yeah. I like that, because it still goes back to this whole idea that, I should be motivated. I should be regimented. I should have goals. It's the first of the year. And so we go through all of these shenanigans trying to be something that we're not, when the reality is probably the majority of people are not regimented or not scheduled. And instead of spending all of your energy trying not to be something you think you're not, I like the approach of, this is how I'm feeling, so let's just go with it. I don't feel productive today, so I'm not going to force it. I'm going to do something else that is not necessarily productive, but you can't be in create mode 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there are ups and downs and seasonal flows of energy. And it sounds like your approach is to say, let's flow with that and let's not try to create something that doesn't exist.
It's so right. And you mentioned goals a moment ago, and of course we've not long had the new year where we're making New Year's resolutions and things.
Mm-hmm.
But the trouble with goals is, and mind you, they work extremely well for some personalities, but when people set their goals and they don't meet them, it has like a reverse effect, because then they feel really bad. Oh my God, I failed, I didn't meet them. And it's like, gosh, don't pressure yourself. If you're not a goal-oriented person, then, find the best way that works for you.
Yeah. And I know my problem is I have always been a pretty goal-oriented person, but I'm a very strategic person.
Yes.
So I would have no problem at all sitting around all day long and planning out this grand strategy and all of these goals if I could then give that list of goals to somebody else and say, okay, now execute all of this. Execution is what I have a hard time with.
And then see, Ralph, then instead of seeing them as shortcomings, it's all about knowing, oh, this is my strength and that's not, so hand that a bit over. Hand it over to someone who executes.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess within our business relationships with our colleagues or our partner, we can work like that and use each other to advantage by our strengths. So it's, once you start to do that, it's we stop having expectations that we can't meet of ourselves or others, actually.
Now, you mentioned taking your SoulLife Psychology modality into the personal development space, and I'm curious, what are you working on right now as far as that's concerned? That's got you really excited.
Look, these workshops are truly, I know that I see a lot of advertising where it'll say it can change your life, but it really, people can come along to these workshops and it literally can change their life. And it's because they change their perspective on something will strike a chord with them that is said or that they experience in it, and it really makes them see themselves differently. And the freedom or liberation in that it's so immense. It's quite actually hard to explain. So with these workshops, my big thing is that we do stuff in them, so we have experiences in them. And that's so each person has their own experience. And of course then they are going to hear about what other people have experienced, given that some of these workshops are in groups. No, they all are actually. And that is how I see the way that we can influence humanity, actually, because I guess my big dream is that we can change the world in some way. But what I've come to realize is that if each one of us changes ourselves a little bit, that is, getting at peace with who we are, then the world really can change. But it happens one by one.
I like that. You might not be able to change the world, but you can change yourself.
Yeah.
And it's even embracing, from what I'm learning from you, it's not even trying to change the things about me that aren't meant to be changed, but it's changing the way I see myself and changing the things that I can change, and the rest of it, flow with it, work with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Now, you also, I'm reading here about a SoulLife Psychology kit, which you describe as a do-it-yourself version of the live workshop and retreat. Now, how does that work?
This kit has got some tools in it. They're things like cards and meditations and also workbooks for those who like to work in that way. But so basically it's a do-it-yourself workshop where some people prefer to do their self-development work on their own rather than in a group. So, and also it might be, it's more affordable than coming to a retreat. So either of those things, this kit provides people an opportunity to experience the amazing exercises and exploring the soul life realm and that kind of thing for themselves. So it's a fabulous kit, and I'm nearly finished it, so I'll be launching that a little later in the year.
Awesome. Well, I want our listeners to be able to connect with you and to find out more about SoulLife Psychology and about your workshops and retreats and other things that you are doing in this space, which is very exciting. What is the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Toni?
Well, my website is there, and of course that will have an email and a phone number. The website is www.tonireilly.com.au, and if anyone felt compelled to email me, you can do that at Toni, and it's Toni, that's the girl way, Toni at tonireilly.com.au.
And that's Toni Reilly, Toni, and Reilly, Reilly, and we will get that on the website as well for our listeners. Toni, this has really been eye-opening, and I think I've got some work I need to do on myself. But I'm curious, are there any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share with us as we close?
Okay, I've got a couple. I'm going to try and quickly put them in, but one thing is, there's no should or shouldn't. So if you start thinking, I should be doing this and I shouldn't be doing that, back off and think to yourself, there's no should or shouldn't. Just work out if it's really right for you, like as opposed to for other people. And remember that to change anything in life or even in humanity, we have to start with ourselves. And we're all pretty awesome when you start looking at ourselves. So, the other thing is never say never. If we can just be kind, I think that is the most important thing we can do in life. Being kind to ourselves and being kind to other people. And I guess realize that there's no guru out there that can fix us. That the best person to help us is ourselves. Of course, we can reach out and have mentors and people who strike a chord with us, but in the end, it will all come back to we end up fixing ourselves. Listen to your intuition. It's your biggest friend on earth. Those are my little final words of wisdom.
Well, that's awesome. That's really good. I've been listening and making notes during our conversation. I've got a lot of things that I want to start working on for myself. I've been speaking with Toni Reilly. She is the founder of SoulLife Psychology, and you can find her on the web at tonireilly.com.au. Toni, thanks so much for being with us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Ralph.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.